Hello and welcome back to The Blitz, your weekly Lorain County High School football show, brought to you as always by First Federal Savings of Lorain. I'm your host, Marissa McNeese of the Chronicle, Telegram, and WEOL, joined of course by my partner behind the camera, Kristen Bauer. And folks, it finally happened. We were supposed to bring you The Blitz on location this week, but the elements have forced us back into the Chronicle Telegram studios. We have a big game coming up this week when Elyria Catholic hosts North Olmsted, a huge GLC showdown, so we wanted to bring you the show from Dan Reeser Stadium. Unfortunately, the rain had bigger plans, but because my partner Kristen is so dedicated, we've brought Dan Reeser Stadium inside the studios for all of you. So this lovely scenery you see behind me, all thanks to my pal Kristen Bauer. So we're on location, but not, so we'll just pretend. We have lots of high school football to talk about this week, and unfortunately, though, a bit of sad news on the Blitz this week as well. Instead of our normal Team of the Week segment, we have a special tribute coming up later in the show in honor of our good friend, Matt Lode, who died earlier this past week of cancer. Matt, a great friend to the program, to WEOL, a long time member of Northeast Ohio sports media. He had such an impact on everyone around him. So, of course, we could not have the Blitz this week without honoring our good friend. So a special tribute coming up later in the show to honor Matt. But before we get into that, I think as he would want us, the show's got to go on. Matt was someone who worked all the way up until he physically couldn't anymore, and I think he would encourage us to do the same. There's lots to talk about, and so we'll just get right into it. This week, we're going to start in the Southwest Conference, where the biggest game to this point of the season happening in Avon, when Olmsted falls in first place in the SWC, traveling to Avon to take on the Eagles with 2 losses to their name. Not a familiar spot for the Eagles, so a huge game. Olmsted falls to that point, controlling its own destiny. They were in first place, win out. They remain at the top of the SWC. And Avon needing these wins over these big teams to show everyone, look, we haven't gone anywhere. 2 losses doesn't mean anything here in Avon. We're not used to it, but we're still going to come out, play Avon football. That's exactly what the Eagles did. It was a tie game at halftime, everything you expect when these two teams meet up during the football season. And it was Avon turning up the pressure in the second half after being tied 21-21 at the half. They scored 20 points for a final of 41-29 over Olmsted Falls. Ja'Cory Caffey with a huge game for the Eagles. To that point, he had his best rushing game was 60 yards, and he doubled it for 120 yards, 4 touchdowns for the Eagles. The sophomore, affectionately known around Avon as JC, with a huge game. We've seen it in spurts from him this season, but it was really a statement from the sophomore. He's going to be someone they look to as the season progresses. So really strong performance, not just from JC, but the entire Eagles program, who needed a win. That's a win they had to come up with. It was at home, homecoming, a huge crowd, and they did it. So I think we're going to start seeing Avon trending back to that spot we know they can get to. We know they've been. This is a team that isn't going anywhere. 2 losses has almost invigorated this team more than anything. Coach Elder said it humbled them. They learned a lot from those 2 losses, and we're seeing that come together on the football field. So again, a huge win for the Eagles over Olmsted Falls, 41-29. Sticking in the SWC, we got to talk about a team that finally broke a really frustrating losing streak when Elyria, hosting North Ridgeville, the Pioneers come up with the 30-0 win over the Rangers. A huge win for the Pioneers. Like I mentioned, they start the season 3-0, really strong, playing really good football, and then just, I wouldn't even call it falling apart, because it's hard to say that when you're playing teams like Avon and Olmsted Falls and Berea Mid-Park right at the start of your conference schedule. It was just a different look, teams they weren't used to, and these are really tough programs. So Elyria falling to 3-3, but hosting North Ridgeville for a really good chance to get back on the winning side. They blanked the Rangers, which is a very strong offensive team. They can run the ball over the field, but that Elyria defense holding strong for a 30-0 win gets them right back where they need to be. They're healthy. Coach Devlin Culliver said they've got they were missing some linebackers, but they've got all those guys back. They're healthy. They're feeling good and putting it together on the football field. So a really important win for the Pioneers, who started with a strong statement at the beginning of the season. And I wouldn't call it, I think the Rangers are still, they can put some things together. There was a point in the season where they were 3-1 and they hadn't had that kind of winning record at any point during the regular season for their seniors. Coach Brian Morgan had mentioned their senior class had never had a winning record. So they're still putting some things together. Let's not forget this is a first-year coach, a new system. They start a couple freshmen. So 3-4, not maybe where you want to be at this point in the season, but not a total loss either. So we'll see how the Rangers can respond after a little bit of a losing streak here, and we'll see if they can put something together these last few weeks of the regular season in the SWC. Okay, over to the Lorain County League, and are you sick of me talking about Columbia being undefeated yet? Because, well, they are. They beat Wellington 49-14. They go on the road against a good Wellington team, but still the Raiders just playing a level above everyone else. Again, they beat Wellington at 49-14. 14 is, other than the 16 they allowed against Clearview, the most points they've allowed. This is a strong defense, and even stronger offense. They're averaging over 40 points a game, and they're getting the ball in the hands of lots of different players. I mean, this team is scary. They still have some tough teams ahead on the regular season schedule, but we've heard about Marco Sirigliano earlier in the season, the sophomore running back who had 300 plus yards, a number of touchdowns in the first few games. Then it was Owen Mengi. He had 5 touchdowns a couple weeks ago. Quarterback Andrew Champagne playing really well. He's healthy, which hasn't been the case in a number of years. And now this week it was Cody Davis for the Raiders. So a lot of different playmakers on that team, which, like I said, that's scary. This is a really good team. They're the only undefeated team left in Lorain County. They're playing well, but we're going to see how well they really are going to play. They have Oberlin and then Firelands and Keystone to close out the season. So a couple of really tough games. We'll see how they stack up. Keystone right behind the Raiders in the Lorain County League race, both undefeated in the league, and that matchup's coming up in week 9. But for now, Columbia seemingly unstoppable. But speaking of Keystone, team right there, up right behind Columbia in the Lorain County League standings, they beat Brookside 14-6, and yay, they got a win. But if you heard the WEOL Saturday Morning Sports Wrap-Up show this Saturday, you heard from Coach Don Griswold, who said they weren't happy. Yes, a win is a win, but he's disappointed with how his team has had to keep grinding out these wins, and especially in a game where, no disrespect to Brookside, but it's a game where the Wildcats feel like we got to come out strong and we have to win this game, and they didn't. It was a close game. Brookside gave them everything they had, and they're only able to squeak by with a 14-6 win. Again, Coach Don Griswold disappointed with his team's performance. He said film on Saturday morning was somber. That was the word he used. He's not happy with how his team played. They're winning, which I guess at the end of the day is what matters. But this is a team we've mentioned 100 times. They have high expectations. There was a disappointing postseason loss last year, and they want to elevate and step up this season, avoid that disappointment, make a strong playoff run. They know they can. They have the playmakers. It's just they're not getting those fast starts they need. They're having to grind out these wins. I think every week, at least the 2 weeks I've seen Keystone and the number of weeks I've talked with Coach Griswold on Saturday mornings, he's mentioned these aren't pretty wins. They're ugly. They're gritty. Sometimes that's good, but with a team with that much talent, you want to see them start putting this together for a full 4 quarters and not just having to gut it out in the second half, especially when you're going to have to play a team like Columbia, when you're going to go into the playoffs and you're going to run into a team that's just going to be better and you're too far backed up against the wall to do anything about it. So again, a win, which is the important thing, 14-6 over Brookside, but things, they're really looking at things differently over there at Keystone and figuring out how they can now put a full game together and, like I said, not just string some big plays together in the second half to pull out these wins. And we mentioned the big game coming up this week for Elyria Catholic against North Olmsted. North Olmsted in first place in the Great Lakes Conference, a huge game for Elyria Catholic. But this week, they go on the road to Westlake, beat the Demons 41-10. If you read the post-game recap in the Chronicle Telegram on Saturday morning, you saw it maybe wasn't the best win, though the score was lopsided. It was certainly their flashiest. Some huge defensive plays, a lot of big offensive plays, but maybe none bigger than a catch in the corner of the end zone from Jack Keneally. We all remember the Odell Beckham Jr. catch, the one-handed catch. This was, if you were there, if you saw it on Twitter, this was pretty familiar. Jack goes up with one hand, makes the catch in the corner of the end zone for the touchdown, had some OBJ vibes. It was a really, really great play. You can read all about it in the Chronicle Telegram. It was all over Twitter. If you missed it, go back and watch it. Really, really incredible. But the Panthers pulling out the win, 41-10 over Westlake, and they can't slow down now. A huge game coming up this week against North Olmsted. but they have to keep putting the pressure on if they want to end this regular season strong and make some noise in a postseason they didn't get to participate in last season due to COVID-19. So a big win for the Panthers and an even bigger matchup coming up this week at home. I mentioned at the top of the show we were foregoing our Team of the Week segment this week to honor our good friend Matt Lode, who died earlier last week of cancer. We brought in none other than our good friend Tim Alcorn to pay tribute to Matt. Here's Tim.
Well, thanks, Marissa. And indeed, we're all very saddened by the passing of Matt Lode. He was just an extraordinary guy. He was exceptional. Any other superlative that you can think of, it would describe Matt. And he was taken from us far too soon. But what an example he set and what a life he led to be gone at 46 years old. Of course, for the past couple of years, he had struggled with cancer. It was a very public struggle. Matt was out front as far as getting on social media and describing what he was going through. But he never yielded. He never bent to cancer. He continued to work. He always seemed to have 100 projects in the air at the same time. He was a broadcaster. He was a writer. He was a blogger. And he never stopped working. And he also never let you know just what he was going through. And I'm sure it just had to be excruciating. But the example he set was just out of this world. He was an incredible force of nature. Of course, we worked together at WEOL for such a long time. We did the Indians program together down at Progressive Field. We did a Cavaliers show at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And then, of course, all the games that Matt and I did together for high school football and high school basketball. So, yeah, I love Matt Lode. He was a dear friend. And I think as we got older, he almost became like a younger brother to me. So I will miss him. I will miss him so much. We shared so many laughs and I have so many memories, but I will cherish those memories. There's no doubt about that. And as I said, the example that he set was one that we should all follow because that's the way life should be led to its fullest up until your final day. So I'll miss Matt Lode. I'll miss him tremendously, but the love that I have for him will just continue to grow as the years move along.
Thank you so much, Tim, for such a beautiful tribute to our good friend, Matt Lode. He will be so missed on the sidelines on Friday night and beyond. His impact was felt so widely. And so again, we thank Tim for joining us this week on the Blitz to pay tribute to our friend. Up ahead this week on WEOL, another big slate of exciting high school football games coming at you this Friday. On the radio and on Stream 1, you can hear North Ridgeville traveling to Midview. We mentioned North Ridgeville earlier in the show, a team that's looking to string another win together after starting really strong. A good chance on the road at Midview, a team who's turned it up this second half of the season, stumbling last week in a loss. But so a really good game coming up between two strong SWC programs. So you'll want to turn into that one on the radio, Stream 1 on WEOL.com. On Stream 2, a game you won't want to miss. It's Keystone traveling to Black River. Keystone right at the top of the Lorain County League standings with Black River right beneath. Their only loss in the league is to Columbia. It's a really good team. I got to see them earlier this year against Clearview. It's a strong team. It won't be easy for Keystone, and we'll see if they'll finally be able to put together a full 4 quarters of football. So that game, Keystone at Black River, you can find on Stream 2 on WEOL.com. And our Medina County matchup, again, if you're a high school football fan, we've got a ton of really good matchups coming up for you this week. It is Brunswick traveling to Medina. Brunswick, you'll remember we mentioned a few weeks ago had that Hail Mary against Menor. It's a really good team in Medina. Who hasn't heard about Medina to this point? Certainly the rest of the country has. If you got to see them on ESPN2 this past Friday, they beat Menor, a huge powerhouse program, and the first time Medina has ever beaten Menor. It was a great game. Quarterback Drew Aller, the real deal, and Brunswick going to be coming in ready to play. It's going to be a great game. You won't want to miss that one for our Medina County matchup on Stream 3 on WEOL.com. And until then, I am your host, Marissa McNeese, for my friend Kristen Bauer, for Tim Alcorn, for all of us here on The Blitz. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're following along on Twitter, on ChronicleT.com, on WEOL.com. You can get all of your high school sports info there. And until then, we'll see you next week on The Blitz.